the Ministry of Motherhood with me, Kataho Chava. In today's episode, we are continuing our series where we study and learn from mothers in the Bible, and today we are learning from Hagar. Now, backstory, as we always do, we are first introduced to Hagar in scripture in Genesis chapter 16, when it tells us that Abraham and Sarah had not conceived. So then Sarah says to Abraham, "Here's my maidservant," which is then Hagar, the Egyptian, who is then given to Abraham so that they could have a child. Now, in the previous episode, when we spoke on Sarah, we spoke on how this was a norm. This was not a weird or taboo thing in those times, because it was even drafted into the marital contract, actually, that if the wife cannot bear children, then she is supposed to give one of her maidservants to the husband so that they could have a child, and that child would be the wife's child. So it would be adopted, the child would be adopted to be the wife's child, and then the maidservant who gave birth to the son, and it had to be a son. So until the maidservant gave birth to a son, then once she gives birth to a son, she would be released from being a servant, so she would be free. So that's how it happened. That's what was supposed to happen between Hagar, Sarah, and Abraham. Unfortunately, in this case, that's not what happened, because then we are told that once Abraham and Hagar go into each other, then Hagar falls pregnant, and after she falls pregnant, she then starts disrespecting Sarah because Sarah was still barren, and then Sarah complains to Abraham about it, and Abraham is like, well, this is your maidservant, so you can do whatever you want to do with her. And then Sarah then treats Hagar harshly. So now that is all in Genesis chapter 16. Once Sarah treats Hagar harshly, Hagar then runs away. In between Hagar running away, she is encountered by an angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord tells her to go back because she is with a child, and the child is going to be made a great nation, and God is with her. And that is actually where we see Hagar saying, "He is the God who sees me." So in the wilderness, that's where she then saw the Lord, and she then said, "He is the God who sees me." Then we move on. She goes back to Sarah, and then we move on, and then we see the tension come back again in Genesis 21 when Isaac is born. Because when Isaac is born, it says that when the baby was weaned, Abraham throws a celebration for Isaac. And when Abraham throws a celebration for Isaac, we see that it says that Ishmael was mocking Isaac. And that is when Sarah said, "Nope, I draw the line here." Then she says to Abraham, "Listen, you need to tell this maidservant and her child to go away." And scripture tells us in Genesis 21 that this is a matter that distressed Abraham, because at the end of the day, Ishmael was his son. But the Lord then appears to Abraham and says, "Listen, don't worry, don't be stressed. I'm going to make a great nation out of Ishmael. He will be blessed because he is your seed." Remember, the promise was that the seed of Abraham will be blessed. So Ishmael was still the seed of Abraham. So God then says, "I will still bless him because he is your seed. So do what Sarah is saying, send them away, but don't worry, Ishmael will be covered." So that is a bit of a backstory, and we pick up our focus for today's session is in Genesis 21 after this interaction that Abraham has with the Lord, because then it says Abraham rose early in the morning and he packed up a bag of food with bread and water for Hagar for the journey that she was about to embark on, and that is where we pick up for this session. So we read from Genesis chapter 21. Verse 14, it says, "So Abraham got up early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy and sent her away. And she left but lost her way and wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was all gone, Hagar abandoned the boy under one of the bushes." So that would be our first point for this session, right? When I was doing a bit of research here, some people state that it would be safe to assume that Hagar was going back to Egypt. Remember, she was an Egyptian. So when things were going south, she was going back to a place that was familiar to her. It would be safe to assume that she was going back to a place that she knew, because in Genesis 17, when she had that tension going on with Sarah, she was going back to Egypt. So this journey that she was embarking on was one that she knew, she was familiar with, and so the food that Abraham packed for her would have been enough for that journey. Right? But the problem here is that scripture tells us that as she was going on that journey, as she was in the wilderness, she got lost. She lost her way and she ended up wandering in the wilderness aimlessly until she ran out of water. And that is my first point for you today, is that life could have possibly happened to you, and you are finding yourself right now in a season where you feel like you have no direction, where you feel like you don't know where you're going, where you feel like you don't understand like whether your life is coming or going. Should you be a stay-at-home mom? Should you start a business? Should you go back to work? And if you go back to work, which job are you applying for? Should you go back to school? Should you quit your job and become a stay-at-home mom? So you feel like in this season you don't understand where you're going. You feel like you are wandering in the wilderness aimlessly because you are lost. And as if that's not enough problems, right? You have a child, right? Now you're in the wilderness, you're in a season where you don't understand what direction you need to be taking. As if those two things are not bad on their own. The resources that you had for this season, you can see that they're running out. Or maybe they've run out. And you are sitting there and you're thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what tomorrow looks like. I don't know what the next week looks like, because number one, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. My resources are running out, and I have my children who are relying on me. And maybe that's where you are right now. You're in that season where you don't understand whether you are coming or you are going. Okay? And I want us to continue reading, because with that understanding of where you are, it's important for us to know where we are in life. Are you where you need to be? Are you not where you need to be? Are you somewhere along? Because there's a point where when Hagar was thinking about her life, she was a servant. Right? She was a servant. She had a home, at least she had shelter, she had food, her baby was taken care of. Okay, so she was well off. She was in a better place. And now, because of the mistakes of other people, she's now finding herself, and her own mistakes, because she did not have to disrespect Sarah, but she did. So because of her own mistakes, she's also finding herself where she is today. So how you got to the wilderness does not matter. How you got to the place where your life is without direction doesn't matter. How you got here doesn't matter. What matters is now, how do you navigate the season, because time is of the essence. I want us to continue reading, because this will make sense, right? Because in verse 15 it says that she abandons the boy under one of the bushes. Not necessarily abandons like she leaves him, but she just sets him down under one of the bushes. Because you need to understand, they were in the wilderness, right? They were in a deserted land. So the only place that she could put him was not under a tent, it's not under a roof, whatever. It had to be under a bush, because that's all she could possibly find in the wilderness. But when we continue with verse 16, it says, then she went and sat down opposite him, about a bow shot away, so just a bit of a distance away. For she said, do not let me see the boy die. And she sat down opposite him. She raised her voice and wept. We've already understood that she's in a season where she's in the wilderness, she's lost, she doesn't have resources anymore, and she has a child. And then she says, I'm going to sit a bit of a distance away, because I don't want to see my child die. So she is aware that this is a critical moment where at any point the child could die, because because of how difficult the situation is, right? And maybe that's where you are. Your life is without direction. Maybe you don't have a job, or maybe you don't understand what's happening. Your resources are running dry. You've got children that are depending on you, and you are realizing that this is a sensitive time. This is a sensitive time. And what she does next, the fact that she sits down and cries, she raises her voice to cry. When I read this part, I was confused. Because I'm like, if I'm a mom and I'm in a season where I don't have direction, I'm lost, I don't have resources, My child is relying on me. My reaction, yes, I want to cry. Yes, the situation is hard, but it would be to call for help. And in the wilderness where there's no one to call for, I would call for God. Because Hagar is the same Hagar where in chapter 16 she encountered the Lord and she says, he is the God who sees me. It's the same Hagar who says, this God has seen me in the wilderness. She was in the wilderness when God encountered her. So she is the same person who knows that God sees her. But in this moment, that is time sensitive. In this sensitive season of her life, she sits down and she raises her voice not to call on the God who sees her, but to cry. And yes, I know the situation is tough. I know it's heavy. I know it hurts. I know it's frustrating. But to sit and cry would not solve the situation. Because what we come to realize when we continue reading is that God was not moved by her crying. God was rather moved by the voice of the boy. So her tears did not bring transformation. Her tears did not bring a solution. And yes, I know you want to cry. I know it's a lot. I've been in my first year of motherhood was filled with moments where I just wanted to cry because I was like, God, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And I look at the resource pool that I have and it's running out. I still don't know if I should get a job. I'm applying, but I'm not getting jobs. I still don't know whether I should continue being a stay-at-home mom. Should I start a business? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. I know what it feels like to be a mom, to be without direction and without resources and to just want to sit and cry. But here's what I need you to understand. Your tears are not going to bring transformation in your life. Your tears are not going to bring a solution into your children's lives. Your tears are not going to help you in any shape or form. Because Hagar, the same God that you said he's the God who sees me, why in this moment are you not calling on to that God? Why are you not calling on him to say, God, you're the same God who saw me back then. See me now. I'm calling unto you. I'm lost. I'm in the wilderness. I have no resources. My child is about to die. God, help me. See me. Why are you not calling unto God when you're in that season? And what Hagar is going through is what most Christians actually go through, is that when we're in a season of drought and we're in a season of confusion, instead of calling unto God, we'd rather sit and cry. We'd rather sit and complain. We'd rather sit and talk about how people messed us up. We'd rather talk about how, yeah, it's Abraham and Sarah's fault because now I wouldn't have this child if it was not for them. Now they even gave me this child to go back home with. Now I'm stuck with it. It's my partner's fault for not picking up his share of this situation. It's my parents' fault, it's my friend's fault, it's that person's fault. Instead of praying, instead of calling on God, instead of seeking God, we'd rather sit and complain, we'd rather sit and cry. Why? Because it's the easiest thing. It's easier to sit and cry than to call on God. I remember a time last year when my partner and I were planning our wedding, and there was a specific point where that day and that week, it was just opposition after opposition after opposition. It just felt like nothing was going right. And I remember I was so overwhelmed that I literally just said, I'm going to go to the bedroom and I'm going to cry. Like Hagar. I was like, I'm going to go sit in my room, in the bedroom, and I'm just going to cry. And I remember like it's happening right now, that I went into the bedroom and just as I was about to shut the door, God said to me, you are about to cry in a season where you should be fighting. You're about to cry in a time that does not require tears. This time requires warfare. This time requires you to stand in prayer, because you crying right now is not going to solve the situation. You need to stand up and pray. When I tell you that I said, okay, Lord, and I just prayed. I prayed. That feeling of just wanting to cry even left me. I prayed over that situation. I prayed over the opposition. And let me tell you that after I prayed that day and the days to follow, everything was just going right. Okay? Because there's a time when you can sit and cry. But not when your child is about to die. Hagar, you just said, I'm going to sit a distance away because I don't want to watch my child die. So you even recognize that it is a sensitive time. So why are you not fighting for a solution? There is a time where you could sit and cry and sit in the pain and sit in the hurt and sit in a place where you're trying to understand, God, what is happening? And there's a time for that, but this is not the time. Not when your children are acting crazy like they're possessed. Not when your home is falling apart. Not when your business is falling apart. Not when the workplace is turning toxic all of a sudden. Not when it is a time-sensitive season. That is not time to sit and cry. That is time to raise your voice and call unto God. What I also love is we continue reading. In verse 17, it says, God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy from where he is resting. God heard the voice of the boy. Now, this specific part is not necessarily about Hagar, but it's something that I want us to remember, especially as mothers. 2 times, God told Hagar and Abraham that Ishmael would be blessed, that he would be a great nation. 2 times, right? And what we know about God, if anything, is that he is faithful. He is faithful to the words that he speaks. He's faithful to his promises, right? So now, when we hear or when we remember the promises that God made to Abraham and to Hagar regarding Ishmael, we realize why God responded to the cry or to the voice of the boy, even if the mother did not pray. Okay? Because God had a promise that he needed to be faithful to. He had a word that he spoke over Ishmael that he needed to be faithful to, because had he left Ishmael to die, God would not be found faithful. Think about it. If God had let Ishmael die because of the mother's prayerlessness, God would not be faithful. So God intervened not because of the mother's stance in prayer, but he intervened because he's faithful. He intervened because there was a promise over Ishmael's life, and God is faithful enough to fulfill it. So when he realized that this mother is not standing up in prayer and this child is about to die, he had to intervene because he had to be faithful to his word. His word was what moved him to move. The promise that he made on Ishmael's life was what moved God to move over the situation. Is what caused him to then speak to Hagar and say, what troubles you, Hagar? And for me personally, God saying, what troubles you, when he can clearly see the situation, was something that stood out to me, because I was like, God, you can see the situation, right? Surely you are still the God who sees her, so you can see where she is in life. You can see that she is troubled by the fact that she is lost, she has no resources, and her child is about to die. But God says, what troubles you, Hagar? I think God asked that question, what troubles you? Because, Hagar, I'm still the God who sees you. So why are you troubled as though I've left you? Why are you troubled by your situation as though he's not the God who said, I will never leave nor forsake you? Why are you troubled as though you're not a child of God? Why are you troubled as though you do not have the Holy Spirit helping you? Why are you troubled as though you are not called by God for this season? Why are you troubled as though God has not called you to be a mom unto his children? Why are you troubled? What is it that is troubling you right now? As if God is not for you. Why are you troubled as though he's not your hiding place? Why are you troubled as though he's not the one who makes, the one whom with man, these things are impossible, but with God, all things are possible? Why are you troubled? I am reminded of the disciples in the boat with Jesus sleeping, and then the storm hits, and they all freak out because they're all like, Jesus, you don't care about us. Yeah, you sent us here to die. And when he wakes up, he says, why are you afraid? Where's your faith? Oh, you have little faith. Why are you troubled when the God of heaven and earth is with you? Yes, I know. Yes, I know. I know your situation is hard. I know the food is running out. I know month end is coming and the bills need to be paid. But is he not your God? Are you not his child? Is he not your father? Are you not called by his name? Unless if you don't believe that God is for you, then that's a different story. Unless if you don't believe that he is your God, and that when he is your God, he takes care of his people. Unless if you don't believe that he's your shepherd, and if he's a shepherd, he's a faithful one to take care of his sheep. Unless if you don't care, if you don't believe that he cares about you. Because God is asking, Hagar, what troubles you? Because I'm still the God who sees you. I'm still the God who is for you. Why are you troubled? Why are you troubled? Don't let the situations that surround you make you forget the God that is with you. Do not make the situations that surround you make you forget the God that is with you. Because troubles will come. Scripture tells us persecution will come, hard times will come. What we need to always remember is that yes, they are coming, but they can never overcome me because God is with me. God is for me. God is within me. God is ahead of me. God is behind me to protect me. He is all around me. So don't let the situation, no matter how hard it is. I've been in a situation where we had 1 unit left. 1 unit of electricity, and that thing was going beep, beep, beep. I've been in that situation where the cupboards are running empty. You literally look at the cupboards, and I've looked at my partner and be like, babe, I don't know what I'm gonna make for lunch. I don't know what I'm gonna make for breakfast. I don't know what I'm gonna make for dinner. We've been in that situation, my partner and I, and that's after my child was born. And in those moments, we were reminded that the only way out of the situation is through God. And so we prayed. We prayed with 1 unit of electricity. We prayed and asked God for provision. With food running out in our cupboard, we prayed and asked God for provision. And guess what? He did not leave us. He did not leave us to die. He answered. So yes, the situation is real. Yes, the situation is hard, but God is there for you. And then he says, do not be afraid. We have heard. God has heard the cry of your child, and all will be well. The next verse says, get up, help the boy up, and hold him by the hand. Get up. Get up. Get up, mama. The situation is not going to fix itself. Get up. You need to get up. You need to gird yourself up. You need to get up and help your children up. You cannot be sitting and crying when you can clearly see that you're losing your children to the devil. You cannot be sitting and crying when you can clearly see that you're losing your family to the devil. You cannot be sitting and crying when you can see that you're losing your business or you're losing your place in the workplace. You cannot be sitting and crying. Get up. God said, look at this. I love God's intentionality, right? In the previous verse, it says, do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy from where he's resting, right? God has heard. But now you need to get up. You need to get up. You need to get your children. Okay? And then you need to remember the promise that God has placed over your life and your children's life. Because he says, get up, help your child, right? Hold him, for I will make him a great nation. So basically what God is saying is that remember what I've spoken over your child's life. But first you need to get up. You have a part to play. God has heard the cries of the child. That in itself just says it's going to be okay. But you have a part to play. Yes, God heard your prayers, but you have a part to play. You have to get up and go continue posting about that business. You have to get up and go continue talking about the business. You have to get up and lead your children back to church. Yes, you need to get up and take your children back to church. I know, listen, I take my child to church every Sunday. Every time we go to church, my child goes to church with us. Now our church, I don't know, some churches maybe don't have this, but our church has a family room where the parents with the younger kids can play and stuff, and we can still tune into the service, right? Now, because I go to church with my son and he's now very active, I can't sit in the main auditorium with the rest of the congregants. I have to sit in the separate family room so my child can still play and I can still tune into the service. Most times, like 9 times out of 10, I don't even hear what the service, what the preacher is saying, because I'm taking care of the child. I'm moving. He's playing roughly with the other children. I have to go and move him to there, and then I have to feed him. Then sometimes I have to go nurse him. There's a lot, but still, I take my child to church. Why? Because in him, I'm instilling a discipline that says we go to the house of the Lord. It's not a debate. It's not an option. This is something we do as a family. Some of you mamas need to take your children back to church. Yes, I know they don't care about it. Yes, I know they get there and they don't even listen. Yes, I know they get there and they play around. Take your children to church. It is the discipline of the thing. Because you might think nothing is happening to them, but you don't know what God is doing. You don't know the seeds that God is planting in them. Okay, you don't know what happens. You don't know what would happen that one day when the child sees the pastor pray. You don't know what's going to happen that one day when they see you on your knees praying. Take your children to church. Get up. Get up and go back to work and have a smile on your face as though God is with you, as though you walk with God. Get up. Get up. Get up. Okay? Verse 19, then God opened her eyes and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the empty skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God opened her eyes. Lord, open our eyes. Father, open our eyes that we may see that which we need to see, that we may see the provision, that we may see the direction, that we may see what we need in the season, that we may live the season of the will of being in the wilderness. Lord, open our eyes. Let open our eyes so that we can see the well, the provision, the wisdom, the connection you need, the thing that you need to get out of the season that you are in, where you have no direction, no resources. Lord, open our eyes. That should be your prayer. Lord, open my eyes. Open my eyes. But you see, when opening her eyes happens, opening her eyes happened when she got up. When she made a decision that I need to get up and fight. I need to get up and do something. God is with me. So me and God can do this. I always say, my partner, my husband and I always say this to each other when we're in a tough situation or when we're having a tough day. We always say to each other, we've got this because God's got us. We've got this. Not only that, but we've got this because God has got us. That's how we get through tough situations. It's reminding yourself that the only reason I can get through this is because God is for me. God is with me. And then God opened her eyes. Faith. So I guess my charge to you is be sensitive to the season that you are in. Do not be found crying in a season that requires prayer from you. Do not be found crying in a season when your children are dying. Do not be found sitting and crying in prayerlessness when your children are dying, when your family is falling apart, when you're losing your mind, when your life is without direction. No, pray. Get up. Be reminded that God is for you. God is with you. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. I know the situation is real, but God is too. He is a mighty God who does mighty things, as Mary said. And the mighty God is about to do a mighty thing in your life. But you need to believe that He is your God, that He is for you, that He is faithful to the words that He has spoken over your life. And I love that God is faithful, because then when we continue to read, we see how God prospered Ishmael, that He made him into a great nation. His mom found him a wife. Listen, he was a married gent. Everything went well. Have faith, mama. Your children are counting on you. Your children are waiting on those prayers. Carry your children in prayer. I know it's hard to carry them physically. I know it's hard. But God is for you. So Lord, help us. Lord, help us. Okay, so that's our study of Hagar. I really hope it blessed you. I encourage you to just take some time to seek the Lord concerning this message. Where in the sea, where in life are you? What do you need? Do you need direction? Do you need resources? What is it that God needs to help you with? But do not be troubled. God is with you. He's for you. He loves you. Until next time, bye.